This is a city generating more money than entire nations combined. A metropolis so powerful that if it were a country, it would be the 26th largest economy in the world, rivaling Norway's entire GDP. This is London, and right now, it's at the center of a crisis that's forcing millions to choose between heating and eating. Behind the shiny buildings of Europe's financial center lies a disturbing reality. 1 in 5 Britons now lives in poverty. That's 14.4 million people struggling to survive. Working families queue at food banks in record numbers. And for the first time in modern history, having a job no longer guarantees escape from poverty. This is the story of how living in one of the world's wealthiest nations became impossible for ordinary people. There's a disturbing pattern emerging in Britain's cities. In Manchester, a teacher with 15 years experience sleeps in her car. In London, bankers are fleeing the financial district. In Birmingham, doctors are selling their homes. We've spent weeks tracking this exodus, interviewing over 100 people and uncovering data that reveals why one of history's most powerful nations is becoming unlivable. The answer? It's not what you think. Let's start with the numbers, and they're anything but ordinary. Since late 2021, Britain has faced an unprecedented assault on living standards. Prices for essential goods have been rising faster than household incomes, creating what experts call a cost of living crisis. But don't let these clinical terms fool you. This isn't just about statistics. It's about real people making impossible choices every day. The Trussell Trust's findings are shocking. A single adult needs at least £29,500 a year just to have an acceptable standard of living, up from £25,000 in 2022. For a couple with 2 children, that figure jumps to an astounding £50,000. But here's the truly disturbing part. 29% of the UK population, that's 19.2 million people, live in households earning below these minimum figures. While prices keep surging upward, wages have remained frozen in time. Real wages, what people actually take home after accounting for inflation, haven't moved in over 15 years. Perhaps the most troubling transformation in British society isn't just about numbers. We're witnessing something unprecedented: the emergence of widespread working poverty. Gone are the days when having a job guaranteed a decent life. Today, roughly 30% of British children live in poverty, and shockingly, 2/3 come from working families. This isn't about people who can't find work. These are families where parents go to work every day but still can't make ends meet. The numbers paint a grim picture of exploitation. Workers are losing an estimated £3 billion in unpaid holiday pay and wages per year. Employers deploy deliberate strategies, withholding holiday pay, shaving hours off weekly wages, all to increase their profits. Meanwhile, public faith in fair work has collapsed completely. Fewer than 1 in 10 British people believe all work is decent and fair, while 75% demand more action to make work fairer. But deep in Britain's cities, another crisis is unfolding, one that becomes the ultimate symbol of growing inequality. The UK has consistently failed to build enough homes for its growing population. The result? A housing market that spiraled beyond the reach of ordinary people, creating a new class of permanent renters. First-time buyers face an impossible challenge. Without help from what's cynically called the bank of mum and dad, getting on the property ladder has become a distant dream. Meanwhile, those forced into renting face skyrocketing costs that consume ever larger portions of their income. The numbers are staggering. More than 4 in 10 social renters and around 1/3 of private renters live in poverty after paying their housing costs. The situation has reached catastrophic levels. Homelessness has surged by more than 50% in just 10 years. In London alone, councils estimate that more than 1 in 50 people are now homeless, the highest level of homelessness in the developed world. Emergency accommodation isn't just uncomfortable, it's draining public resources at an alarming rate. Local councils spent an astronomical £1.8 billion on emergency shelter last year, a figure that has more than doubled in real terms over the past decade. But there's something more alarming than the housing crisis. The services that British taxpayers depend on are falling apart. Deep in Britain's social infrastructure lies a system in crisis. The NHS, once the pride of British society, is struggling to survive. The waiting list for NHS consultant treatment has more than doubled from 3 million to 7.4 million in just 9 years since 2014. This isn't just about numbers, it's about life and death. Despite record taxation levels, services continue to deteriorate at an alarming pace. Patients treated for major health issues such as heart disease, strokes, or cancer face lower survival rates compared to most other developed nations. And the evidence proves it. In 2014, the UK had below-average survival rates for the deadliest cancers, including the lowest rates among comparable nations for colon and pancreatic cancers. The problem isn't simple, it's a perfect storm. Rising costs collide with an aging population, while expensive new medical technologies strain budgets to breaking point. Staff shortages push the system to its limits. The NHS needs long-term investment, but there's barely enough money to keep the lights on, and reaching these struggling hospitals has become its own financial nightmare. Britain's public transport system, once a model of efficiency, now stands as a barrier to social mobility. A recent study revealed a shocking truth. The UK's three largest cities, London, Birmingham, and Manchester, have the least affordable public transport in Europe. The contrast with other nations is stark. While Oslo residents spend just 2% of their household budget on public transport, British city dwellers are forced to spend between 8 to 10%. In London, the situation reaches absurd levels. Before the pandemic, fares accounted for 72% of Transport for London's operating income, compared with just 36% in Paris. The government's approach to subsidies falls far below European standards, leaving passengers to shoulder an ever-increasing burden through rising fares. But here's where the system becomes truly awkward. Being poor in Britain actually costs more money. This cruel paradox represents one of the most devastating aspects of Britain's cost of living crisis. Many poor people find themselves trapped in food deserts, forced to rely on corner shops where prices soar and choices dwindle. They can't afford to travel to cheaper stores or buy in bulk to save money, and the results of this are truly heartbreaking. Nearly 4 million British children live in households that would find it impossible to afford enough fruit, vegetables, and other healthy foods to meet official guidelines. While food prices increased by 7.7% from 2002 to 2016, the poorest families watched their incomes fall by 7.1%. This creates a devastating cycle. Poor nutrition leads to worse health outcomes, which in turn affects people's ability to work and earn. Areas like Marfleet in Hull, Hartcliffe in Bristol, and Sparkbrook in Birmingham have become modern-day poverty traps. These food deserts, where accessing affordable, healthy food is a daily battle, represent a systematic failure of British society. The poor pay more for basics, while the wealthy enjoy abundant choices and lower prices. This isn't just inequality, it's a system designed to keep people trapped in poverty. With these mounting pressures, something unprecedented is happening. Britons are voting with their feet. The crisis has triggered a mass exodus of talent and potential. In the year ending June 2023, a staggering 508,000 British people left the UK, up from 471,000 the previous year. More and more skilled workers, particularly young professionals, are seeking better opportunities abroad. A junior professional could earn more than double their salary in New York compared to London, with the cost of living only around 1/3 higher. The most popular destinations paint a clear picture of what Britons are searching for. Australia, Spain, USA, France, and New Zealand top the list. While many chase better job prospects in English-speaking countries, others head to European nations seeking higher quality of life, better healthcare, and more affordable living costs. The NHS faces a particular crisis. Doctors and nurses are leaving in record numbers, driven away by poor pay, overwork, and deteriorating conditions. What's particularly concerning is the skills gap this creates. While more people from outside the UK are immigrating than ever before, research shows that those leaving are significantly more skilled than those entering. This offset creates a dangerous imbalance, lower productivity, and declining quality of goods and services within the economy. So where does this leave the UK? The Resolution Foundation estimates that household incomes won't return to pre-crisis levels until at least 2027. On current trends, the average Slovenian household will be better off than its British counterpart in 2025. The statistics reveal a nation in decline. If you remove London's output and population, it would shave off 14% from British living standards. The remaining UK would perform worse economically than Mississippi, the lowest-ranking US state. This isn't just economic decline, it's a fundamental reshaping of Britain's place in the world order. The historical context makes this even more striking. In 2007, the average UK household was just 8% worse off than its peers in northwestern Europe. In the 15 years that followed, this gap has grown to a record 20%. For the UK's 68 million people, this crisis serves as a stark reminder that even in one of the world's wealthiest nations, prosperity isn't guaranteed. The question now isn't whether living in the UK is becoming impossible. The real question is whether anything can be done to reverse this trend before it's too late. But here's the thing, Britain isn't alone. Across the globe, another former colonial power is writing a similar story. Australia, a nation that was once Britain's distant prison colony, has become a beacon of opportunity for those fleeing the UK crisis. Just like Britain, Australia faces housing pressures. Just like Britain, it grapples with healthcare challenges. In our next video, we'll explore why living in Australia has become a nightmare for the locals. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss this crucial follow-up. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on Britain's crisis. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.